to this computer, and it's okay. I think we are recording now. So welcome to Marjory Mair. The reason I invited her this morning to give her 10-minute session was she gave, to my mind, what was the best presentation I had on how to avoid boring, horrible, nasty, difficult meetings ever. Okay, so Marjory, I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. Do talk to us about what you do, how you help businesses run better, faster, quicker, so we know how to refer to you. So over to you, Marjory. Please do remember you're live on Channel 4, so please do not swear.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much for having me this morning. Just want to check that you can all see my screen. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to talk about making meetings marvelous. So, and on that note, I have just recently published a book as part of a group of 10 other independent consultants. We self-published this book about 3 weeks ago, and my chapter is called Making Meetings Marvelous, and I'm going to share some of that stuff with you this morning. So just a few facts before we get started. 13 days a year per person are lost in meetings. 23 days per year per person is spent in meetings, 23 days of our lives. 56% of meetings are unproductive, a waste of time, and the cost to the UK economy is in the region of £45 billion, and the cost of small businesses is in the region of £1 million. And that's, there's some research from The Independent just 2 years ago, so not that long ago, really. So I came across this poster in one of my clients' meeting rooms. So a big corporate organisation, and I saw this, and I'm just going to let you read it for your own entertainment for a moment. Okay, so a bit of resonance there, isn't there, really? You know, a real bit of something happens inside you when you read that. You're like, ah! So just to share a little bit of my experience, I've probably run worked with over 2,000 people over the last maybe 10, 15 years on running effective meetings. And one of the questions I ask them is, think about a time when you went to a great meeting and what was great about it. Now, the fascinating thing is a lot of people really struggle to think about a great meeting that they've gone to. So walking away from a meeting going, yes, that was a really good meeting. And when I ask them, what was it that was good about it? There's usually a kind of common list of things. That it was well chaired, there was an agenda, there was action points, everybody contributed. But actually, it takes more than that to make a good meeting great. So what I've done is I've collected the wisdom from many people, and I've played with it myself to try it out in meetings. To the extent where, let me just give you an example. As a school governor, I used to go to a meeting that started at 7 o'clock and finished somewhere after 10 o'clock. And this was after a day in, you know, kind of heavy work, usually driving off the M25 straight into the meeting and, you know, not leaving there, probably not had any dinner in most cases, and leaving there after 10. And I set out on a mission to sort that meeting out. And after about maybe 3 or 4 meetings, we had got it to a point, and I never told them I was doing this. We got it to a point where we actually managed to leave the building by 10 o'clock. And then over a series of months, just by, you know, little pincer movements, I managed to make sure that we finished those meetings by 9 o'clock. And I had a few kind of things that I did that I'm going to share with you that would help. But the aim of this really is when you're in charge of the meeting, when you're chairing it, when you're facilitating the meeting, what can you do about it? And if you're not, you can still use those tips. So I'm just going to go through the top 10. So I've got 10 tips in the book, in my chapter in the book. And I'm just going to, because I've only got 10 minutes, I'm just going to cover 5 of them. So timing is the first one. And what I would encourage you when you're setting up your own meetings is forget the clock. You know, that it starts on the hour and it's got a 1/2 past, because that's often our trap. So set our meetings to start at 5 past, at 10 past, or even 2 minutes past, rather than always on the hour, because even within this new world that we're working within, we end up clicking out one meeting, and the only thing we exercise is our fingers on our mouse as we move from one meeting to the next. So finishing our meetings at 10 to the hour or 20 past the hour gives us time to get up, to stretch, to go and get some coffee, to get some water, raid the biscuit tin, whatever we need to do, have a comfort break, get some fresh air, and that can actually transform how we actually participate ourselves in meetings. And the other thing is, work always expands to fit the time available. It's the Parkinson's law. So if we allow ourselves 40 minutes for a meeting, see what you can achieve in 40 minutes, and it's not going to be that much different to what you would achieve in 60 minutes. Purpose. Have a really clear purpose, and this is probably one of the most effective things I do with teams, is help them to identify what is the purpose of their team meeting. And I find it's fascinating when I interview them beforehand, or send out a questionnaire and say, what do you think is the purpose of this team, and what do you think is the purpose of the team meeting? The diversity of ideas is massive. So if I only do one thing with a team, it's helping them to be really clear and focused on their purpose, and really clear and focused on the purpose of their team meetings. And so a clear purpose for the team, and engaging the team, engaging everybody in the purpose of that meeting is the kind of #1 success factor in getting a clear purpose. And even if it's our meeting that we're setting up with our clients or whoever, be clear at the beginning of it. The purpose of this meeting is to X, Y, Z. Be really, really clear. And then that helps with everything else in the meeting. Behaviours. Behaviours, this is probably one of the most powerful things that I have experienced in being part of a group, a committee, a team, is having a set of behaviours that we all sign up to in the meeting. And in my experience, and then I'm going right back quite a few years ago now, I was part of a team that was really dysfunctional. And one of the things we did to get ourselves sorted out was we set up a set of ground rules about how we would treat each other and behave in the meetings. And one of the things that came out was about turning up in time for the meetings. And I was one of the people who wasn't very good at turning up in time for these meetings. So one of the people who I had a lot of respect for in the team said, I think people should just turn up in time because I think it's rude when they don't. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be rude. Especially not seen to be rude by this guy who I had a lot of respect for. And guess who was never late for any more of these meetings, because it just was a bit of a wake-up call to me. So it's things like that, but everybody signs up to it, that we're going to be in time for team meetings. We're going to come prepared to the meeting. We're going to listen to each other. We're going to question to understand before we question to challenge. Things like that. And one person talking at a time. We don't do side chats. All these kind of things came up in our decision and our discussion and as to how we're going to run our meetings. And it was transformational, not just in our meetings, but in our effectiveness and our productivity as a team in that organisation. So behaviours, a common agreement about how we're going to behave in the meeting. And then agenda, #4. Having an agenda that isn't just a whole lot of bullet points that say things like finance update, sales update, HR update, which is just as dry as dust. And are you going to go rushing into a meeting with headlines like that? Probably not. So you'd probably rather just stick pins in your eyes. So what can you do instead? Have an agenda that has questions, okay? And this comes from the work of Nancy Klein and her Time to Think. An agenda that has the items as questions. So rather than something that just says budgets, it says, it would say something like, what are the key considerations for setting budgets next year? Or how are we going to decide how to set our budgets next year? What's the decision-making criteria for setting budgets? And what happens is people come engaged, ready to think about the thing that you need them to think about, rather than their own interpretation of budgets about who gets how much and who doesn't get how much. And that brings people to the meeting ready to think about and contribute to the real questions that need answers to, rather than everybody's own interpretation of what their own personal agenda might actually be. So that's the agenda. And then the last one, engaging everybody. So there's a thing about meetings that you're not present until you talk. So often you might have come to, attended meetings where people just sit on the sidelines, they don't get on the pitch. And then at the very end of the meeting, they throw in this kind of like hand grenade, or, they throw in this thing that you think, I really wish you had spoken up about that at the beginning, or now's not the time, because everybody's packing up. So at the very beginning of the meeting, taking time to get everybody to check in, just with a question like, something like, what do you want to get out of this meeting? What's the most important thing for you to get out of this meeting today? Or something like, what's one success you've had in the last week? Just one. And it gets people to think and engage in the meeting, gets their voice into the meeting and gets them present. And then the next time they need to speak up, particularly for people who are introverted or shy at contributing meetings, it's not such a big deal for them to contribute the next time, because they've already spoken within the first 10 minutes of the meeting. So if you want more about meetings, I highly recommend this book by David Pearl. You can actually go on the website, and he has got 10 top tips as well about transforming meetings, starting a business revolution one meeting at a time. And he says that that life is really kind of too short for boring meetings. So he says get out there, and if you're not clear about why you're in a meeting, is the doors, don't be in it. So he's quite bold and quite brave in his advice, but it is a good meeting. It's a good book, really. It's one of the few books that I've actually read cover to cover. And the other book I would obviously recommend is Good Work and Good Business, with the whole chapter on making meetings marvellous. And as I said at the beginning, this was self-published about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's available on Amazon. It's $2.99 for an ebook or $9.99 for a book. And the income from the book goes to the Trussell Trust, which is the organisation that arranges food banks across the UK, so dealing with poverty and hunger specifically. So that's just a little bit about that. So just going to finish off by saying, I wish I'd spent more time in meetings today, said nobody ever. So have a good meet, one meeting at a time. Just really encourage you to think about your meetings more. And there's just one overarching tip that I would have, and it's about the value and the importance of preparation. So breaks down into 3 things: prepare, prepare, and prepare. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Marjory. I'm going to stop recording, I hope.